Okay, welcome to the final episode of Totally Clutch for 2020. This episode is going to catapult you into the new year with big, achievable dreams. And we'll be back again the second week in January to talk about marketing trends for the coming year. So make sure to subscribe wherever you listen from, and then that way you'll know when the latest episodes are released. I'm Angie Feeman with Clutch Businesses, and before we dive in, I want you to think about how much money you dream about your business making. So is it 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 figures? Because we've got the founder of The Growth Boss, Deirdre Tshien, with us today to talk about how you can hit your dream numbers with a lot more ease than you probably think. And be sure to stick around until the end to hear about the boot camp that she has or the challenge that she has coming up. She'll tell us all about it. So welcome to the show, Deirdre.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Angie.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I'm excited. I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say. So we'd love to hear first a little bit about your background and about what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I guess where do I start? I started my first business about 8 years ago. I don't know if you can tell from my accent, but I'm actually Australian. I live in New York City right now. We moved over here about close to 18 months ago, actually. So just at the right time. No, but it's been a lot of fun. And so I started my first business 8 years ago. It was actually in hospitality. So we have dessert bars and burger bars in Sydney.
Cool.
And we grew them to over 7 locations. And then a whole host of things have happened in the meantime. And we decided to make the move over here, which is super exciting. And then, with Growth Boss, how that came. So I've obviously started in hospitality. I have my own e-commerce businesses, and also have tried, I've gone through the whole process of starting and failing multiple other businesses as well. So I feel like I've done the gamut of entrepreneurship, to be honest. And I think, with Growth Boss, I just really wanted to be able to provide the kind of support that I wish I had when I first started my business, because I just remember those days of feeling incredibly lonely, of almost feeling claustrophobic in a way. Like in my store, I had a brick and mortar store because it was in hospitality, and I just remember those days when we were doing like only $100 a day, $200 a day, maybe a handful of coffees here and there, and it was just unsustainable, and it was like seriously the loneliest time, I think. So I just got to this point in my life, in my career, and I was like, I now want to give back, and I want to help other entrepreneurs not have to feel like that, be able to have a strategy to actually grow their business.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
and I guess I kind of jumped like 20 steps ahead. So the Growth Boss is really focused on helping businesses grow to 7 figures. Is that right?
Yeah, 6, 7 figures. It really depends on what goals our entrepreneurs have. We do focus on e-commerce businesses predominantly, because it's just such an exciting, cool space to be in.
Oh my gosh, it's growing so fast.
It's super fun. It's super cool, super fun. And it's, we really focus on sort of, and I think I mentioned this to you as well, the biopsychology behind why people buy, I guess, what attracts them, and how we should be thinking about positioning our products and what we do to be able to address that, because essentially that's how we're going to sell sell our products. So yes, that's kind of
so tell us a little bit about buyer psychology, like what goes into that, and I mean, I guess maybe even explaining what it is, because I'm not sure that everybody is familiar with that idea.
Yeah, for sure. So I was actually, I actually did a session this morning. It was really about kind of, when we think about the marketing messages that we have to, so many times, and I've been guilty of this as well, so I totally get it. We tend to start with almost the logical things, what are the features, what are the benefits of what it is that we're selling, because we think that that's how we have to actually convince someone to buy. And there is a part that does play a part for sure, but we always miss out on this opportunity to actually tap into the emotions first, because emotions is really ultimately what makes people take action. And what goes into that is a whole host of things, but predominantly, if you can think about how do you almost paint the picture for someone. So how do you paint the picture for someone so that they can see themselves using your product, getting the result that they're after, and then how do you use that to evoke the emotion? That's really got to be your starting point. And sort of one of the frameworks that I take my clients through is you first really want to determine, the before and after. For all of our products, we all have a starting point. So where are our customers now? And then where do they want to be? Where do they want to get to? And that's regardless of whether we have what we call like a painkiller product or a vitamin product. There's always going to be a starting point and an after point that our customers want to get to. And so I think, the journey from getting them from that before point to that after point, if you can paint that picture through in your messaging, if you can, use the different tactics, I guess, that I teach around, driving social currency and social proof, being able to link it to a frequent, like an existing trigger in people's lives, so that it's kind of like as soon as they think about that thing, and a really clever example is how KitKat did it, where they linked it to, have a break, have a KitKat. And so it's like every time you have a break or you think about having a break, you think about a KitKat. And they recently, I think, actually tweaked their campaign to actually link it to coffee, which is an even more tangible, frequent trigger. So, when you think about having a coffee, you think, oh yeah, KitKat. So it's just things like that where you kind of go, okay, how do buyers actually think? How can you actually integrate yourself into your products into their lives so much so that it just becomes a no-brainer to buy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to say no to that, right? You're solving, I think, we talk about oftentimes, within my house, we've got a marketer and then myself, and we talk about oftentimes that what people are searching for on the internet is not your products or what your product can do, but they're searching for what problem you're solving. So they're typing in like, window leak, my window's leaking, what do I do? Obviously that's not the greatest example, but they're not looking for double paned, they're not searching double paned sealed window. They're right, they've got a leak and they need to fix it.
Totally.
Or they have a break and they've got a craving and they need to satiate it. So
have a KitKat.
Right. That's awesome. And so how do the people that you work with figure that out? Like what problem they're solving and how to create that, invoke that emotion in people?
Yes, it's really funny because when people get started, so my clients get started in my program, that's the first thing that we get them to do is what we call the blueprint. And I always set expectations that this is the part that's going to be will probably take the longest, will probably feel the most brain draining, like like they're going to feel completely depleted after doing this, because I think we all intuitively, because we all love our product. And I think that's why, in a way, we always start with the rational, logical, features and benefits, because we love it that much. And we know that this can help our customers, that we completely miss the fact that we actually need to be talking to them in their shoes, and so I actually get them to do this blueprint, which takes them through all of those steps of how to really dig deep and come up with, because as I said, they all intuitively know it, but they've never actually really, a lot of people haven't actually really spent the time to sit down and articulate it, because that is actually one of the hardest parts. But once you can crack that, and once you can really spend the time doing that, then the rest of it, building all of, what we call like the funnels, all the sales funnels, all of the marketing messages, things like that, becomes really relatively quite easy off the back of it. As soon as you kind of know, that is where your customer is now, how you're talking to them, and then where you want to get them. Like when you know that really clearly, and I just have a variety of questions that I ask from different perspectives and different, to really get them to hone in on that. Once they get that, it's a massive amount of clarity that is actually so freeing in a way, because it's like, oh wow, that's what I've been trying to build.
Yeah.
That's the business I've been trying to build. Okay, now we can go out and really really supercharge it.
Yeah,
So
I can totally see that too, because I think one of the things that business owners struggle with is creating content and messaging that that they're sending out to their customers or potential customers. And I think it's like it is so draining for them to try and figure out what to say and how to say it. And I think it's probably that way. Now that you've said that, it's probably that way because they're coming at it like the emotion's gone for them as well, right? And that's not very fun to write about. Emotionless stuff is not very fun to spend your time doing. So
exactly, because you're completely right, because we've all gone through that journey ourselves, right? Like we have this business idea and we get really excited about it because we're like, oh my god, this is like, how is no one doing this? Or people are doing this but they're not doing it the way that I want to do it. So you go through that emotion, and so you feel all the things already by the time that you actually start your business. You set up your store, you've spoken to manufacturers or suppliers, or you're making things yourself. You go through all those motions. You've lost the thing that got you started in the first place. Well, it's not that you've lost it, but it's kind of been buried amongst all the things that you've had to do. So we just help kind of like bring that to life again, and just really go like, if you remember why you even started in the first place. And I love founder stories, especially when they're trying to solve a problem that they themselves had. When you go back to that and you go, okay, well, where were you? Where were you at that point? And then where did you want to go? Or where was your loved one if you were solving a problem for someone else in your family or friend? And then where did they end up being? Like, when you can really start to hone in on that, then and bring that back to the fore, then hopefully you actually really start to fall in love with marketing. Which is what I tell all of my clients. They have to fall in love with marketing. They don't have a business, unfortunately. And
it's meaningful marketing that you're asking them to fall in love with, right? It's not cheesy, salesy.
Exactly. Exactly. Everything that I teach, and the whole strategy that I coach my clients through, is all about building human connection. And the reason why is because we don't want to feel salesy. We don't want to feel slammy. We don't want to feel spammy. Like, we don't want to feel all those things. At some point, you need to ask people to buy, because that's the only way that you're going to actually get money in the bank. But you want to do it in a way that is authentic and it's true to you, true to your message, true to the contribution that you actually want to be providing to the world. And the way that you do that is through building human connection. So that is actually the whole foundation of everything that all of the marketing the marketing strategy essentially that we help build is all rooted in human connection.
Yeah, that's great. So is that where most businesses get stuck from, or are held back from hitting the goals that they want, or reaching the point that they want?
Gosh, Angie, I would say it's a lucky question, only because there's so many points that a business, I feel, gets stuck. But ultimately what it comes down to is a business will only really get stuck if the business owner themselves get stuck, in terms of almost from a self-limiting perspective. Because so that's one. The other is probably a bit of overwhelm, because there's just so much that we could do, and time is a factor. But if I really talk about the self-limiting beliefs bit, where that comes from is because we all have, no matter how great a childhood or how great our upbringing, like we've all been conditioned a certain way. I know myself, I was really fortunate because my parents, moved from Malaysia to Australia when I was a baby, to give me and my brother a better life, a better education, more opportunities, all this. So I was really fortunate in that way. But what that meant was that I was conditioned to achieve. I was conditioned to do constantly, and nothing was good enough. And it's not that my parents ever told me that. I mean, sometimes I feel like they probably did.
Right.
But it was more that was just what I absorbed, right? From wherever, that was. And so we all have this conditioning in our life. And what that means is what that brings about is all of these hosts of self-limiting beliefs. Even I sometimes still grapple with it, where it's like, okay, I've been able to achieve a 7-figure business, but it's like getting 8 figures, like getting to that next level. I'm like, how am I going to do that? I don't know how I'm going to do that. And that's a self-limiting belief. And the really destructive thing about this is that we as humans, we always want to prove ourselves right. Okay, like even if it's subconsciously, we will prove ourselves right. So if we start telling ourselves that we can't do or we can't achieve something or we can't reach a certain goal, then we won't. Like that's how it works, you know, because we're subconsciously sabotaging ourselves at every turn because we want to prove ourselves right. Even if intellectually we're saying, no, I want to get there, I want to reach, 8 figures or whatever that is, subconsciously, because we're still living in fear somewhat, or we still have some self-limiting beliefs, this is where we get stuck. Because if we don't overcome those, then we will find ways to never get out of that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if that quite answered your question.
No, it totally does. It totally does. And I mean, that's why there are hundreds of thousands of coaches right now that are making money just on working with people on mindset. Totally. And like making sure that they're coming from the right place.
Totally. Yeah. And it's important. Like, I don't know how well all of these coaches are doing. I don't know how good
right.
are, but like it is actually a really important thing to be helped through, because no matter how confident we think we are, no matter how evolved we think we are, always something that is holding us back. I genuinely believe that, and I think if we can really get to the root of that, then nothing can hold us back. Like nothing can, technically or theoretically, nothing can block business. So I do genuinely believe that.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. I mean, it's really powerful to know that you have that there, right? That you're the only thing holding you back, because I think so often when we're coming from a challenging a mindset where that's not self-serving, right? It's because of somebody else. Somebody else is holding us back is the easy thing to fall into. And you are telling us that we have permission to be as successful as we want to be and know that we can be. And that's pretty freaking powerful.
I know, 100%. Oh, I'm so glad that we're talking about this, actually, because I totally believe in that. And it's just, I've had to look, if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm still working on it because, as I said, I've always had this mindset of like, I have to achieve. And I get really hard on myself when I don't, hit certain goals, when I don't finish my to-do list, which, we can never, it's impossible, right, to complete a to-do list. And I've had to actually learn to give myself grace. I've actually had to learn to be, to find compassion for, and that starts with myself, like definitely be compassionate with others. But if you can't be compassionate with yourself, then you can't be compassionate with others. Right. And so I'm still going through that journey myself of being okay with, I haven't been able to absolutely complete everything. I feel like I've run out of time. I feel overwhelmed sometimes with all of the things that, I have to do or I have to help people with. And it can get a lot. And, to be honest, that's why we've kind of structured the Growth Boss Academy, like the program, the way that we have was to cut through that overwhelm, to be able to go, it's okay, it's okay to forget about, a lot of the stuff, because I think, and especially when you're in e-commerce, you're getting told you have to be on social media, you have to be on Pinterest, you have to be running ads, you have to be doing SEO, you have to be doing all of these things, and that's overwhelming. So the way that we've actually structured the program is forget about, just focus on building out one funnel at a time. Right. And we'll get you there. We'll get you on all the things that you have to be doing, but you need to just focus and you need to cut through that overwhelm, get rid of it so that you can actually get things done. That's really the only way that we can actually get things done as humans.
Yeah, that's actually really a powerful reminder. I think I found myself in this place a bit.
Sorry, I think we've lost sound.
Did I lose everybody?
No, I've got you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. That business is all about growth. Like, so if you want to make 7 figures, you don't have to be making 7 figures today. It's like, if you want to be making 7 figures by the end of the year, that's then great, but build to that. So you're starting from where
Yes.
you are right now, and
Yes.
you will incrementally grow to that point that you
100%.
want to, but it's not going to happen, and it doesn't need to happen right now. So you don't have to have every funnel in place today. You prioritize the ones that are going to give you the cash flow that you need so that you can build the next one, and then one will give you the cash flow that you need to build the next one. And
Yes.
it's hard to I think as an entrepreneur and as a small business owner, it is hard to give yourself that, or I think to approach it from that way.
Yeah, and I think, almost to give yourself the permission,
Yeah.
because you do, right? And I totally get it because, again, it's human nature. We want to have everything there, in the one go, because that's like, we're like, well, how else are we going to reach our goals?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're absolutely right that it's like, again, it comes back to giving yourself that grace, giving yourself that permission to just, you will get there, 100% you will get there. It's just, you actually won't get there if you don't focus and if you don't build things out, if you don't do things properly, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, can we talk about one of the funnels? So I know
Yeah.
that everybody is planning for next year, kind of they're evaluating what happened this year and planning for 2021. And a lot of people then are starting to work on their marketing and their marketing budgets and advertising budgets. So can we talk about Facebook ads and or maybe not Facebook ads specifically, but like where do you see people spending, or let's say wasting the most money on ads, and maybe what they should be doing instead? So we don't have to be super negative, but
Yeah, so this is actually a super important question because I talk to a lot of new entrepreneurs, and I always ask the question, what have you been doing so far to drive traffic? And a lot of people, if they are, fortunate to have the money, Facebook ads is the logical place, because, and it totally makes sense because, with over 2 billion people, etc., on there, like, that is a place that's going to have the most people to be advertising to. But I think what people don't, it's actually quite complicated to run ads on Facebook. There's a whole host of things that you need to know. So everything from how to set up your audiences, how to create the best copy, the best creative to stop the scroll, and then the copy to actually get people to click through, all the metrics behind that. So it is actually quite complicated. And if you're doing it for the first time, you might want to get a bit of help doing that, whether that's a course or coaching or you probably want to do it rather than getting an agency. I wouldn't recommend getting an agency to begin with because you want to know how this works first, and then you can definitely outsource it. But unless you know how it works, how are you going to know what you're holding someone else accountable to, right?
Sure, that's awesome. Yeah.
So that's the first thing. But I think the mistake that people do make with going straight to ads is that they don't know, and especially for new businesses, is that they don't know who their audience is.
Yeah.
Because you might have a hunch, you might have a hypothesis, but and that's totally cool if you have a lot of money to spend and to waste on ads, then cool, go for it, right? But a lot of us are pretty short on money, so that's actually not the path I would go down first. The path that I would go down first is to actually start with organic outreach. And from there, and it does, to set expectation, yes, it does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of resilience. It is definitely not the easiest thing to do. But if you can get this right, if you can build your audience with the right people because they are qualified, because you've actually had one-to-one conversations with them, and they're purchasing from you. So you've built up a really good base of buyers who are the right buyers. And then when you take that and you put money behind that into ads, that's when the magic happens.
Okay.
That's when you actually get the biggest bang for buck. So that's why I say if you cannot get organic outreach right, then you are going to be spending a ton of money on ads. You won't be able to get ads right unless you spend a ton of money on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it totally does. And I think, it's helpful too, because I think a lot of people think that advertising is like a magic bullet. They just throw some money at it and the people will come. I mean, I've thought that before. I've built things and tried to just rely on advertising and it doesn't work, probably for exactly the reasons that you've said. So that's super helpful. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I find. Anyway, that's kind of what I find a lot of businesses do. And it's exactly the same as you said. They think it is the magic bullet, and unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah.
It's really
not. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's so great. It's so helpful. And I mean, I think at times we all know these things, and like having a reminder is priceless. So, yeah, and some of it we don't know, right? But okay. So now you've got a challenge coming up, or it actually just started today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. It's a 3-day challenge. It's completely free. It's super exciting because we're talking about how to take your audience from cold to converted in 3 days, and we have a whole bunch of bonus sessions as well that we're doing. One is on Facebook ads, actually.
Okay. Yay.
And the strategy behind that. But essentially, what I'm going to be, what I do in this challenge is I take people through the exact strategy, the exact roadmap that I help my growth bosses actually implement in my program. So it's super exciting. It's super cool. A lot of content, I think a lot of new, almost counterintuitive content, like things, as you said, that we probably might intuitively know, or something, or things that are like, oh, I've been told otherwise, and that's the reason why it doesn't work, or the thing that I've been trying doesn't work. So it's super cool. So yeah, sign up. I think that the link is on there, www.thegrowthboss.com/challenge. We started today, so there's definitely plenty of time to catch up. But yeah, I'd love to see people jump in.
Yeah, awesome. And I just signed up for it, so I'd love to see some of the listeners join me. And I don't know, I mean, if enough people from here join, maybe we can do a follow-up with some people and talk about kind of what happened, how we all benefited from it. Yeah, awesome.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I know that this was so helpful. I mean, I know that we covered a lot, but I also know that it was really impactful. So I really appreciate that, and appreciate all the insight. So with that, I guess since this is our final show for the season, for the year, I want to wish everybody a happy new year. And thank you so much for listening. And I know that 2021, whether you join the challenge or not, is going to be amazing. And we'll be back to start it with you the second week in January. Again, we're going to be focusing on the marketing trends for 2021. And so kind of building off of what we're already talking about a little bit here, what was happening in 2020, what were people focusing on marketing wise and advertising wise, and what can we expect for 2021. So thank you so much, and enjoy. Okay, so we've all been told that you have to DIY your first business, or it takes endless, painstaking, and frustrating hours and tons of sleepless nights to launch a business. But if you're really honest with yourself, how is that working out for you? If you want to launch an e-commerce store so profitable that you can leave your full-time job, I've got a step-by-step system that walks you through how to launch and build a store in just 5 hours. I'm still amazed at how quickly women are able to start making money using this system. So if you're interested, save your seat to the free training that I'm hosting by visiting thecompleteonlinestore.com/intro training. Save your seat. I cannot wait to see you there. And I can't wait to see you and your store in action.